Here is a look at the wild card standings in the West. The Kraken and the Jets currently occupying those spots, but the Flames and the Preds not far behind. And of note, the Predators do have a few games in hand on some of these teams. But as far as the Jets, Flames, and Preds are concerned, we mentioned this earlier in the show, they have all had opportunities in front of them that they have not taken advantage of. So, EJ, what is it?
It's a turtle race.
It is a slow race to the finish between these three teams. Shout out to the folks behind the scenes that put that together, because
really
that
quickly.
is well done.
Yeah, and the music is, I think adds a certain element.
Chef's kiss.
If you can speak at EJ in a production meeting, our crew can create it for you.
Excellent job.
4 hours later.
Yeah, that's
later.
excellent.
Yeah, whoever put that together deserves a tire pump in the post-show write-up. Collins, so let's make sure we get that in there. He says he's on it, but let's talk about these three teams, because I just, to be honest with you, I find it frustrating. A couple weeks ago, we talked about the opportunity in front of the Calgary Flames to catch the Jets. They're not able to do it. The Jets win a couple of big games back-to-back. Connor Hellebuyck plays on Saturday and Sunday a week and a half ago, and then the Jets follow that up with 2 losses, and all of a sudden it's close again. I don't know how to make sense of it. All 3 of these teams are in action tonight, but at some point, one of these teams needs to grab the bull by the horns and, make it happen, right?
Yeah, you would think so, but I've seen this movie before covering the NHL for many years, and there's a reason why teams linger at the bottom, because they have there's a number of reasons. They have injury issues. Like in Winnipeg, they've had some big issues with injuries, right? Morrissey missed a few games. Pierre-Luc Dubois missed some time. And that's a big piece of your puzzle right there. They have to play Hellebuyck so often, just like Nashville has to play Saros so often, Stu, right? Mm-hmm. So you get into this late in the season, these guys are a little bit worn out. They don't have a second option. I mean, the good news, for the Calgary Flames, I guess, is that Marchand hasn't been great, but at least they feel like they can play Vladar. I don't know if you feel the same way if you're in Nashville and in Winnipeg, despite the fact that Lankinen has had some good numbers, but you saw the other night, didn't go so well for him at the Garden. So there you can see it, Stu. It's pretty straightforward. And the Preds, even if they've sold off, they've been the team, despite that ugly loss, that has been decent.
Yeah, we've seen more life from them, say, over the last 10 than from those other 2 characters on that board, no question about it. I think the club that I find the most surprising, because I've been bullish on the Winnipeg Jets for the last 2-3 years, a team that really should be able to button down a top 8 spot in the West, and really, given Connor Hellebuyck, given a really nice balanced blue line and some very dangerous weapons up front, that's a team for me that when they graduate to the playoffs could win a round or 2. I'm not saying they're capable of going on a good deep run. To me, they're the most astonishing of this group, because they've probably shown us, played some of the best hockey of these 3 teams, yet they too are in a bit of a free fall. I mean, that turtle ought to light a match and ignite that rocket on its back.
That rocket and get it moving
out in front of those other characters. Calgary, I think, is the team that really surprises me the most. That's a team that, just the way they're built, that's a playoff team on paper. And those 2 tenders, that goaltending tandem, was top 5 save percentage in the league last year. Hasn't changed a lick this year. The team, out Tkachuk in Huberdeau, and maybe Weegar at the end of the day. Those are the 2 major changes from last year. And now that team is, I think they're second to last just in terms of save percentage.
Well, and they have Kadri too, right?
That same tandem.
Yeah, I mean, it
is a bottom 2 save percentage.
Yeah, it was really weird to see them losing a couple of big pieces there in Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk. They added Huberdeau, they added Kadri, they added Weegar, and you're right, on paper it looked like maybe they'll be better than they were last year. But when you watch them play, and I've talked about this a lot, watching them play this year, it's been dramatically different than watching them play last year. They weren't nearly as fast a team this year as they were last year. They weren't in your face as much. They really suffocated you last year. And then we could always argue. I mean, the goaltending is something that always kind of undermines everything you do. And their goaltending this year, quite frankly, has not been very good.
I'll say this, too, about the Calgary Flames, and I feel like it summarizes what's going on with the wild card race in the West very well. Like, it has not been a good season for Calgary. Like, you ask anyone that watches that team every night, that's a fan of that team, EJ, you've been talking about them all year as being a bit disappointing.
Yeah.
Like, it has not been a good year, and yet they are still in it somehow. That, to me, just exemplifies what's going on. We'll see what happens here down the stretch, but we very well could be seeing a Nashville Predators first-round series just with the games in hand. They've got a good goalie. They have the least amount of pressure, I think, out of those three teams to actually make it. So if I'm John Hynes and the staff out there, I'm like, cracking the whip, let's go. Like, we have a real opportunity here to make the postseason and give real great fans in Nashville some playoff hockey to watch.
Well, the injuries are big for Nashville, though. No Yossi tonight. They got a number of other guys out of the lineup. They do get, he's been out for a while. They do get Ryan McDonagh back tonight, so that's a big thing for them. But Duchesne has kind of, he's dried up over the last several games, not producing much. So it's a challenge for the Nashville Predators, no question about it. Right now, their schedule.
For all three.
Yeah, and tonight, look at the Winnipeg versus at home against Arizona. Calgary's second of a back-to-back at Anaheim, a team that doesn't defend well, and then Nashville at Buffalo. Two teams, by the way, that are coming off 7-0 losses. The schedule maker is weird sometimes. You would never figured that, right? Two teams coming off 7-0 losses against each other tonight. So big game for Nashville.
But as we have seen when we bring up the strength of schedule, right? We have seen all three of these teams with scheduled wins, I would say, that in games that they lose against teams they should beat. So you never really know what's going to happen.